Allow me to properly introduce myself. I'm the Grand Regent, Camaro Jackson. Many men wish they could step up to me. Many men wish they could snatch more heads than me. Many men wish they could conquer more kingdoms than me. I'm knocking all of y'all heads off y'all shoulders. I'm taking over that kingdom now. Who do you honor? Titles change and legends lore. Tune in, you know what's in store. Heel turns and face reach.
Warning West, blood setters. Got me on the mic, now let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Wilt to Steph, we hit it again. Both better chimes in, let's go deep. Young bloods rising, can't skip a beat. Puppy prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream highs. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Podcast magic can't be beat. Do better, we're roll better. Or who cares? Trendsetters.
What's poppin', y'all? It is your boy, Guard-E3. I hope you enjoyed our special Halloween intro. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, joining me like every week, it is the greatest co-host of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Mo Betta. Mo, how you doing?
I'm doing good, doing great, actually, on a Thursday night, getting ready to talk hoops with my guy, Guard-E3. So, yeah, no doubt, guys, welcome everybody that's checking us out. We're about to get into it.
No, absolutely. And we all know how we start every week. Too many players that fly under the radar, underrated players. Mo, who do you got for an underrated player of the week this week?
I'm actually going with a guy from back in the 80s. Great nickname. He's known as the Boston Strangler. I'm talking about Andrew Toney of the Philadelphia 76ers, two-time All-Star, one-time NBA champion, and one of the original masters of the mid-range. Andrew Toney could put the ball on the floor. He could post up. And he was also a very good defender. I think Andrew Toney sometimes get lost in time. But Andrew Toney, great two-way player. That's my guy that I'm putting in for underrated player of the week.
Oh, fair enough. That's honestly, that's so good. Even it was a name I forgot about. Mine, it's gonna be a little boring and use it on the guy that just announced his retirement. Give me Rudy Gay, an absolute bucket getter. A lot of fun to watch in his prime. One of those things that they won't teach you is how clutch Rudy Gay was. He was absolutely phenomenal. There's that viral clip with Rudy Gay in it, where he caught the ball and you just hear the one fan yelling, no, not Rudy Gay, not him. And then he elevates and hits a clutch jumper.
Right.
He had a career that, not a lot of people are going to talk about, but a lot of people would dream about having. So congratulations on retirement to Rudy Gay. You were a lot of fun. In the words of the great Darvin Ham, salute.
That's a really good one. I think people forget that Rudy Gay was about 6'9", could put the ball on the floor, could post. He could score at all three levels. You forget that he was just such a talented bucket getter. He kind of gets lost in the shuffle, but I remember him, I believe, when he was with Sacto. I remember him when he was with the Grizzlies. Like you said, if you look at numbers, if you're a numbers guy and you like to do analytics, Rudy Gay, I'm just being honest, and the analytics say he's one of the clutchest players in NBA history.
No, yeah, fair enough. And, before we get into anything, I figure I'll give you, scores from around the league right now to keep you up to date. And this pains me to do this on Today of All Days because, once again, we are getting embarrassed by a shorthanded Grizzlies team, just like last year. At halftime, the Grizzlies are up on the Bucks 70-48.
Wow.
And the Mavericks are currently down 13 to the Rockets, 34-21. I'm loving what I'm seeing from the Rockets so far. They're one of my two sneaky playoff teams for this year. So I'm happy. I'm happy about the Rockets. Not so happy about the Bucks.
I like the Rockets. My only question with the Rockets, and I've said it, going back to last season, nobody questions Jalen Green's talent. I only wondered, could he do what he does and be a much more efficient scorer? And so far, he's shown signs that he could do that. And I wanted to see if he and Sangoon can play together at a high level. Sangoon's gotten off to a slow start, so I think they got to find a way to engage him more. Maybe that's what's happening tonight. But yeah, I like their talent. I just want to see if their two best players can be more consistent.
It's actually funny. Their leading scorer tonight is Dylan Brooks with 10.
That is scary.
Probably the most surprising things of most surprising news. Why don't we look at the leading scorer for the Grizzlies? Just because I think it'd be funny. Okay, yeah, it is Ja Morant, but Scottie Pippen Jr. has 13 off the bench.
I think people look. I want to put this out there. I've watched him since he's been part of the Memphis Grizzlies. They have found a role for Scottie Pippen Jr. He has basically taken over from where Jones was and shown that he can be a very good backup point guard, a playmaker, and a solid defender. So I'm happy that he's found a lane for himself.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's so hard to talk about the Grizzlies right now, just continuing to look at that score. If anybody doesn't know, I'm a diehard Milwaukee Bucks fan. It's been a really hard watch. And the annoying part is, if we're losing and it's just some ridiculous thing happens, like Miami shooting 51% on tight threes, I can live with that. But these last couple of losses have been frustrating, which I thought we gave exceptionally. I thought we were actually really good, really solid in the game against the Celtics. We just weren't perfect. And against the Celtics, you need to be perfect to beat them. Right now with the Bucks, it's all about just execution, energy, effort. That's the frustrating part because it's the things you can control which are coming down to. For example, there's a play today. Dame gets all the way to the rim, reverse layup. Awesome. So how does Santi Aldama beat everybody down the court for an easy dunk on the other end? There's so many plays where it's just we're not talking, we're not communicating, we're not giving a lot of energy and effort out there. And it's just the most painstakingly frustrating thing. That's what's driving me up a wall. We're not controlling the things we can control.
I think so I look at your Bucks kind of differently. On a given night, your team could have the two best players on the floor. The problem is everybody else after them, they're not so good. Bobby Portis is a really good sixth man, if you will, coming off the bench. Gary Trent Jr., who I still think will come along, has gotten off to a slow start. But after you get past those four names, I think there's a lot of holes in that roster. There just is. And there's a lot of lack of athleticism. There's age. The bottom line is, if you look at Milwaukee, and I keep saying this, top to bottom, it's got to be the least athletic team in the NBA, which means you don't have elite level defenders on the perimeter. You don't have a great point of attack defender, and you're not good in transition defense. Like, they can be great on offense and still lose because they're not what they were defensively 3 years ago. Brook Lopez is still a solid rim protector, but when you put him in space and you play fast, he's a cone. He can't stay in front of anybody. I honestly, I don't remember your GM's name, but if he doesn't go out and make any kind of move and he stands pat on this roster, I think that would be a complete failure. I don't think this roster is enough. I think they need to add a wing, and they need to add a wing that they're going to put into their rotation, because you and I both know Doc Rivers doesn't really give a lot of young guys a lot of playing time.
No, he doesn't. And once again, we've seen that this year where what do we get for who's leading the team in minutes? Mo, you know him very well. It's Taurean Prince. Which, I saw Andre Jackson finally cracked rotation this year. He's playing in this game, and he played a little in the Celtics game. Doc doesn't really have an excuse this year. I'm sorry. He just doesn't. He complained how hard it was to join a team in the middle of the year last year. Well, guess what? He got a full off season now to prepare. Now, any leniency that you got last year from having to join midseason, out the window. It's gone. It's
Agreed.
done. So I'm not looking for any excuses from Doc or the Bucks in general. I just want results. And the results right now, they stink. Obviously, it's early. We're only 4 games in, 5 games in. We're still can turn it around, which I have no doubt that we will at some point.
Agreed. I don't think everything you're seeing right now. This isn't one of those things where I'm going extreme and going, well, the Bucks aren't making the playoffs. They're done. What I will say is the mission is to win a title. I don't think this current roster can do that. I think they have to do something more dynamic. I think if you value Giannis and Giannis's future with the Bucks, then you don't value picks. You take those picks that you have and package it with a player, and you make a move that complements Dame and Giannis's skill set and gives you some kind of athleticism on the perimeter. I just think if they don't do that, you're acting like we'll find a way to win it in the East. I don't think you can win the East if you don't have strong perimeter play. And I'm not talking about Dame. I'm talking about your wings.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I hope he picks it up. I still, believe that, like it may sound like right now that I'm out on the Bucks. I'm absolutely not. I still think there's time, but it's just frustrating. And, maybe Taurean Prince does step up. Maybe other guys like, Gary Trent finds his groove defensively as the season goes on.
He's a key.
I think this is all possible, but man, just effort. Just show something. Show me something. Show me you guys want to win. Because it looks like from what I saw against us tonight, they look like it's a walkthrough. And it's just practice right now. Except it's not, and the games matter. So
let me ask you a question. Speaking of this current matchup, I find it interesting that I don't know if he's playing well tonight. You can let me know, I guess, if you checked out the numbers. But Marcus Smart has been struggling epically since the start of this season. He wasn't great before he was injured last season. And look, Marcus Smart is a streaky shooter at best. But if he's not impacting games consistently on defense and shooting the way he does, I guess my question is, looking at their rotation, looking at what Scottie Pippen Jr. is doing, along with obviously Morant and Desmond Bane, I could see Marcus Smart being a potential trade chip. And I guess what I'm saying is, in some ways, could Marcus Smart be a younger version of Pat Beverly for you guys? I'm just putting it out there because I don't think Marcus Smart is washed or anything like that. I don't think he fits with what Memphis is doing.
I would welcome a Marcus Smart trade. Honestly, I would welcome a trade that gets Pat Connaughton off my basketball team. Like, he is the most frustrating player to watch on the team. Well, great, that might not be true. Bobby Portis has been kind of rough to watch so far, but if we could find a way to turn like Pat Connaughton into like a Marcus Smart, even if it required giving up like a second, because at this point with the Bucks, who cares about them picks? We don't have them anyway. So
here's a potential, because you and I do this all the time. Maybe a potential win-win trade. I know it's early, but what if you guys moved Connaughton, Trent Jr., and in return you got back Michael Porter Jr. from the Nuggets?
I mean, I'd be down. Like,
only because I'm saying he would give you shooting, he would give you more length. Obviously, he's young. What the Nuggets would get in return, I think they would get added depth. They have no depth. Connaughton is a capable shooter. Trent Jr., when he's catch and shoot and he's playing at his best, is a very good catch and shoot player. I think he would immediately be the first guy off the bench for the Nuggets. It's one of those trades that I could see the potential in a win-win.
I actually almost think the Nuggets would say no, just because of how bad Pat Connaughton's been. I wish I was like underscoring how bad he was, but throughout these first 4 games, to give you perspective, the Bucks are 13 points better when he's off the court. He's not hitting his threes, and the most frustrating part about him to me will always be defensively speaking. He leaves his feet for every single contest.
He does go for a pump fake.
Every single time without fail. So I'm watching plays like we'll defend great for like 20 seconds, then Connaughton will have to leave his feet to try to block a shot. Well, great. Now they get a pull up midi or a wide open lane to the basket or a driving kick. It has just been beyond bad. If we could turn Pat and even like someone like Gary Trent into like a Michael Porter, I would do backflips. Which, by the way, Bob, how about them Nuggets? Like, we knew the, non-Jokic minutes were going to be an issue, but I don't think anybody was expecting them to be this bad.
I thought their starting five might be able to carry them, but again, playing both sides of this, a lot of people keep thinking that Michael Porter Jr. has another level to him. And don't get me wrong, the level that he's at, if you're a 6'8" catch and shoot guy that's very effective as a 6'8" catch and shoot guy, if that's your lot in life, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think a lot of Nuggets fans keep thinking he has another level to him. And as a third option, I don't think there's another level. I think he's literally at his ceiling as a third option. That who he is in fact who he is. And if you're waiting for him to all of a sudden learn how to put the ball on the floor and beat people off the dribble, you're going to be waiting for a long time. I said this to you in the offseason, and I'm saying it again for everybody to listen. They're going to have to come down and make a tough decision, and maybe it's not a tough decision, between Aaron Gordon and Porter Jr. because their owner has told their GM, Calvin Booth, you go nowhere near the second apron. The only way they're going to get better, they're going to have to pull off a big trade that maybe doesn't bring back more individual talent, but brings them back more overall depth. And I don't think they're going to move Aaron Gordon. I think they would move Porter Jr.
No, absolutely. And I think they almost already, because if I remember correctly, Aaron Gordon just got himself an extension. So it almost feels like with the extension, they've made their choice. So I wouldn't be shocked in Michael Porter getting moved up and out of there within the next, maybe as early as the end of this year. So I don't think they trade either of them this year, but I wouldn't be shocked if he was on the move after this year. By the way, I just want to shout out my boy Gabe. He actually is the one that made the site. All the stats I'm bringing up are from NBAvisuals.com. A lot of great stats to get from there. So y'all should check it out. It's definitely worth it.
And let me just point out one more thing, Brett. Don't forget, if you look at the situation that Giannis is in and look at the situation Jokic is in, they're very similar. They're in very similar situations. And we're talking about two franchise players who are right at the peak, right? They're in the middle of their prime. If you want to keep them happy, and look, neither one of them is known as guys that do a lot of talking, but I have to think that the GM, the owner are well aware that both these guys are on a mission to win another title. They've both already won a title. They've both been finals MVPs, but both of them think long-term like you and I do. Both of them think about their legacy. Giannis wants to be a multiple-time NBA champion, as does Jokic. And it's interesting, the pairing. It's Jokic and Murray. It's Giannis and Dame. And I think everybody else not named those guys could be potentially on the chopping block.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So actually, the Nuggets are like a perfect segue into this new segment that we have. Simple. We're taking some takes that either we have or maybe seen on social media, and we're going to play a game of on or over. Are these people onto something? Or is this an overreaction? Of course, the first take, we're talking about the Nuggets. Jamal Murray struggles. Is Jamal Murray already on the decline? Because I've seen some Twitter people that think so. Jamal Murray, he's already sliding, trending downwards. Nuggets would be smart to look to move him. Mo, do you think they're onto something, or do you think that's a bit off right now? Because we know he's been cold for a while now.
So here's something that's interesting. I was just talking about them making a choice between Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon. Jamal Murray just got an extension, but he's been struggling, Brett, since the postseason last year. Like he made a couple of big shots, but I'm talking about his overall play. He had not played well, and the Jamal Murray you and I know, and every NBA fan knows, plays with a lot of swagger, great shot creation, great shot maker, and he has not been consistent or been close to that for a minute. Look, I thought once the extension thing got out the way and he knew his future was set money wise, maybe that was the issue. Maybe that was bothering him mentally. But I will say this: there is a way you can keep Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon because Jamal Murray has more value than both of them. If you trade Jamal Murray, would you get back more? You absolutely would. And if look, Joker's your centerpiece. Do you have to have an all-star guard beside Joker to win a title? No, because what people forget is Jamal Murray, as good as he is, he's very similar to CJ McCollum. He's never made an all-star team. He's not an all-star. He's had huge playoff moments, but he's not an all-star. If he continues to struggle and we get closer to the trade deadline, it would not surprise me if then rather moving those forwards, they look to move Jamal Murray and bring in guys that are more complementary to what Joker does. Like you could bring in a guy who's not a better shot creator than Jamal Murray, but he might be an out and out better shooter, a more efficient and reliable shooter. You could bring Murray. He has a similar skill set to Jamal Murray, but he's a little bit younger. I think he's a little bit better at attacking the basket. So I'm just saying, if you can bring back more depth, I wouldn't rule out it. So I'm going to say they're onto something.
We got the reverse enigma chiming in with the bold idea: start Russ, bench Jamal Murray.
Yeah, start Russ. So Joker's on the floor with 3 non-shooters. Good move.
You got to boost those on-off numbers for Joker. Got to get him his 4th MVP somehow. I get the
here. If you put Russ on the floor, his assist numbers are going down.
Lay down.
Peanut subs. You know what? Peanut is clearly a Jamal Murray fan. Okay.
I am so sorry about that. I thought my mic was muted. I was going to tell him to lay down. I'd like to apologize for that one. But yeah, I think they could be. I actually think they could be onto something.
Right.
I think it's very possible. Jamal Murray's been struggling, and it's really only continued from there. So, and another one that I saw. Moving on to the next one that I saw. It's actually this one comes from Atlanta, Mo. Because I think it's time for Onyeka Okongwu to start. And obviously it's been a short 4-game sample, but do you think I'm onto something, or do you think I'm off base?
Oh, you're way onto something. Look, there was a point in time when Okongwu and Capella were sharing minutes. But now Okongwu is playing so well. He's a walking double-double. He's kind of what Capella used to be, but a more aggressive, more athletic version. I think what Atlanta is doing is holding on to Capella and waiting to reel in some offers. Because, look, Clint Capella can still be an effective center for what he does, and there are teams who are in need of effective bigs. He's a roller and a good rebounder. So I do think they're onto something. I think Okongwu will eventually out and out start, and Capella will get moved.
Yeah, honestly, this one was what I was simmering on last year because I thought it was Okongwu's time last year, and I think you can argue that it may have been his time the year before that, about partway through the year. I think Capella's still a great player, but I think with Capella, a change of scenery would, do him wonders.
No, I agree.
I just think the future is now for Atlanta. The future is now. It's time to, delve into the youth movement. And who knows? Maybe you get better. I think it's very possible.
I think Okongwu, as I'm watching him develop, is going to be a better version of Andre Drummond. He can rebound like Drummond, but he can do something Drummond couldn't do. Drummond really didn't have a good post game. Drummond he outworked people to get baskets, but he really wasn't skilled in the post. Okongwu, he's nice in the post, and he's only getting better. I like him to eventually become the full-time starter. Like I said, I believe they're holding on to Capella to eventually move him.
Yeah, no, that I agree. I agree, and it's funny because I was watching some of the Hawks games, the Hawk game against the Wizards, and it looked a little rough out there. Now, granted, the Hawks are missing a lot of key components right now. Dyson Daniels was doing great for them. He's out. DeAndre Hunter, he's out too. But, man, that defense looked brutal for him. And I know it improves when those two comes back, but the Hawks were getting whatever they wanted. They were just back cutting the Hawks to death, death by 1,000 paper cuts. So I'm hoping those guys work magic, because what I saw from Atlanta against the Wizards, it was not great.
Let me ask you this question, and it's rhetorical, but when is DeAndre Hunter not hurt?
That's fair.
You know what I mean? Like, we all know he's a good player, but when is he not injured?
No, that's very fair. I love me some DeAndre Hunter. They thought he had all the potential in the world. I thought he could develop into a great, solid two-way player, but that just hasn't happened. He hasn't been able to stay on the field, stay on the court per se, and it makes that Luka trade look a little worse now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because of course he was the other guy involved in that trade. They picked DeAndre with the extra pick they got in that deal. It's funny. At first, I thought that trade could have aged much better than it did, and it was because I thought DeAndre Hunter had all this two-way potential, but it just hasn't worked out like that, unfortunately.
Right. Let me just say this: it's not because he's not a good player. He's just literally injured all the time. Like, it's funny because we were talking about your Bucks and what they needed. If DeAndre Hunter wasn't injured all the time, he would be a perfect fit for Milwaukee. But if you get him, if I'm Milwaukee and I'm looking for a wing, even though I know he's a good player, I wouldn't make that trade, because as soon as you trade for him, he's going to be hurt.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I know a lot of people are did you see your latest Laker news, by the way? Jalen Hood-Schifino's option will not be picked up, to the surprise of no one.
You know how I feel about this. You know how I felt on draft night. I have nothing against the young man. I hope as he takes his NBA journey, he's going to get better. He's going to spend some time in a G League, maybe play overseas. Sometimes your way back to the NBA, you have to make the rounds. It's one of those draft picks that made you scratch your head, and Rob did it. Pelinka makes a lot of draft picks that make you scratch your heads. I don't know what he's doing. The Rockets picked the guy that the Lakers should have picked. We should have picked Cam Whitmore, but Rob Pelinka was trying to play it safe, and he took Hood-Schifino, and like you said, here we are now. He's not even getting his option picked up. We took Bronny. I'm just putting it out there. Let's pretend his dad's not named LeBron James, and we're just taking him at face value of what he is as a basketball player. He's not ready to play on an NBA court right now, flat out. He's not. And we took him 53rd. And I heard, and people are like, well, a lot of people were going to take him ahead of that. No, they weren't. That's not true. He's not good enough. He might become good enough, but what he needs to do is be in the G League. And I don't mean back and forth. Right now, I'm not even sure if you put him in the G League, you'd be like, Bronny's dominating the G League. That's not who he is. That just factually isn't true. I honestly think Rob Pelinka, when it comes to evaluating talent, is one of the worst GMs in basketball. It's not even close.
That's fair. And I think some people just had this high, like, too high of expectations for, Bronny. You could tell there's some guys who have that like killer instinct per se, and that's something that Bronny never really had. He was really content in just standing there and just kind of being a part of the game for long stretches, which is fine. You need players like that on your team, but at the end of the day, the guy that's, just content with letting the game go, flow and not demand the rock and, try to be more assertive, that guy's probably going to be more a role player than not an actual, superstar. And that's A-okay. But you know what?
Right.
Jalen Hood-Schifino, it's all right because my guy didn't get his option picked up either. Marjon Beauchamp, Pro-Am legend. Oh, shame. He was somebody I was out on like a year and a half ago, so I'm glad that he's not going to be back. And he might not even be a bad player, but he's just clearly not developing in Milwaukee, and that's okay. I hope he gets a better chance somewhere else.
That's a great point. Great point that if it doesn't work out with your Bucks, it doesn't mean that young man won't go somewhere else and be a better fit for another franchise. And the same could be said about Hood-Schifino. The same could be said somewhere down the road for a few other young players that are struggling. Really, sometimes it's situation, it's fit, it's opportunity. That means all the world sometimes to a lot of these players that I don't want to call them marginal players, but let's call them players that we know they're not stars. So they're looking to find their roles in the NBA. Are you a great point of attack defender? Are you a great catch and shoot guy? Or are you a wing defender that can guard at a high level? They're all trying to find their way in the NBA and find their lane.
And I've seen multiple of guys on the Bucks that just didn't thrive in Milwaukee. You go somewhere else and do great. Obviously we all know about Dante DiVincenzo, another name that I really like coming into, when we picked him up and he just thrived outside. Sam Merrill, he's doing great for himself in Cleveland. So sometimes it's just a very situational thing. So
agreed. Let me ask you, Brett, if we talked about surprising teams early, and look, we have fun with this because it's really early to go. You can over or underreact after the first week, but is there a team in the Eastern Conference that has really surprised you?
Probably just the Bulls, right? Like, that's probably the most surprising team to me is all of a sudden the Bulls, I'm not going to say they look good, but they just look a lot more competent than we thought they would be. Which I'm sure at some point, that'll take a turn. But 3-2, that's a much better start than I thought they had. They won a nail biter against the Magic, and they even locked in on defense a lot better than I thought they were capable of. So I really think my answer to the most surprising team of the East would be the Bulls so far through 5 games. They've looked really good, and honestly, they've looked really fun. They're playing loose. They're just moving the basketball around. Zach LaVine's been an efficient scorer. And overall, it's really been a fun watch.
I kind of agree. I don't know. Let me say, I think the Bulls have been a pleasant surprise. I don't think anybody ever questioned Zach LaVine's talent. And so it's fun to watch what they're doing right now. And if it holds up 25 games in, it'll be really interesting. Before we start talking about the parade route, let's give it some time because Zach LaVine is a lot of things, incredibly talented, but he's never been a leader. So let's just see what the Bulls look like when we get 25 games into the season. I think the team that surprised me the most in the East has been the Cavaliers, and more because they didn't make any major, kept their same core together, and they decided to opt for continuity. And Donovan Mitchell did something that is really big. He decided to step back and push Darius Garland out front. Even though it's not a secret that Donovan Mitchell is their best player, I think he understands they're a better team when you have an aggressive, confident Darius Garland. And that's the way Darius Garland has been playing early into this season. If he's going to be that way and Mitchell's good with taking a step back, the Cavs are going to be a really good team, and they're going to be a tough out in the postseason.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's been a lot of fun to watch too. And it's funny because another guy who's looked really good to start the year Evan Mobley. He's been more aggressive. He's trying his own stuff off the dribble, which is great. Once again, on low volume, he's actually upped his 3-point percentage through 5 games. He's shooting 50% from 3 on the year. We're talking about 1.5 shots a game from that distance, but it's an upgrade over the 1.2 from last year. So we got a guy in Evan Mobley that's slowly just working on just adding some more volume to his game, and he's getting more comfortable on the ball. He had a great game, 12 to 16 from the field last game against the Lakers. He's looked absolutely comfortable out there.
Oh my God, they blew the doors off the Lakers. Like they beat the brakes off the Lakers. And that's tough. I'm a Laker fan. No secret that those are back-to-back losses for my Lakers. I'm not, again, it's early in the season, and that loss to the Cavaliers doesn't impact my pick of the Lakers winning the Pacific Division because I don't think that's in jeopardy anyway. But I think it just goes to show you the Cavs are top 4 in defense. They're also top 4 in offense. So they're a balanced team.
No, absolutely. That surprised me when I thought that was going to be a really good game, but Donovan Mitchell got cooking early and everybody else just kind of followed suit. So
yeah, they put that to rest really early.
Although I will say I'm really glad that we got Bronny's first bucket out of the way. Great spot to do it in Cleveland. I'm sure that, the G League's in store for him, but it almost felt like a relief to get that out of the way because I'm sure that would have been a media question. Just, when's it coming? When's it coming? So, although I got to admit, the Lakers still look a lot better. They look a lot more rejuvenated than last year. Anthony Davis just looks a lot more aggressive too. So, do you think he's going to be able to sustain that for a long period of time?
Look, the only thing that'll stop him ultimately is health. But people, I've heard a lot of commentators and pundits go, "This is the Anthony Davis we've been waiting to see," and I'm like, "This Anthony Davis that you're currently seeing, that's the Anthony Davis that I saw for years with the Pelicans. This isn't new. This is what Anthony Davis can do when you put him out front." I think what I like about JJ Redick's offense is he doesn't make it LeBron James centric. He makes it to where everybody can touch the basketball and everybody's a threat on the floor. But the option, at least the number one option to me, and it's clear in this system, is Anthony Davis, which makes complete sense. On a nightly basis, how many bigs are going to be able to stop Anthony Davis when he's attacking and he's aggressive?
Absolutely none. And I think that was always my biggest complaint with Anthony Davis is because this is the thing I want to see, because I've seen Anthony Davis do this for like 2 weeks, but then he checks out for another 2 weeks. So if this is the Anthony Davis I'm getting, he's going to make me look like an idiot because I had him as the 16th best player going into the year. And I love it. Here's the thing. I want to be proven wrong. I want everybody to play to the best of their potential. And Anthony Davis has absolutely been on fire coming into the year. So it'll be exciting to see if he's able to keep that up. I think LeBron's looked really good too. I think overall, just like the big five look good. D'Lo, Reeves, I think Connect, Bron, AD, Rui.
Rui's played well. I predicted that Rui, every year he's been with the Lakers, he's gotten a little bit better. I think this year Rui will consistently, when it's all said and done, he's going to average around 16 and 18 points a game. He's so good in the mid-range. He's improved his three-point shooting. I love what Austin Reeves can do when he's on the move. The only guy in that lineup that's been rocky, and it's the same guy all the time, is D'Lo. It's D'Lo because he's so streaky. And the thing about D'Angelo Russell is if he's not hitting shots, then there's no value to him because he's a low-level defender. I don't know if the Lakers are going to try to make a blockbuster move, but I do think they're going to try to move D'Lo. They've been trying to move him for like the last couple of years, and right when they get ready to move him, he goes on a streak, and they're like, I think he's found it. And then right when you're convinced he's one of their guys, he kind of shows you who he really is in the playoffs. If I was Rob Pelinka, and I'm not, I'm moving D'Lo. I am moving D'Lo and relying on – I'm going to move him in exchange for a 3-and-D guy. That's what I would do. I would look to, you know what? Here's a 3-and-D guy that they just brought back. He's been gone for 2 years, but he looks like himself, even though he's playing limited minutes. Why not bring Lonzo back as a 3-and-D guy for the Lakers? He would elevate them defensively, and it's not a secret over the last couple of years, he's fixed his three-point shot. He's one of the better three-point shooters in the league. That would be a great story, and that would be a great fit for the Lakers.
Oh, 100%. I've loved how Lonzo's looked, to start the year. It's been great. It's maybe the greatest story this year so far. And I love it. I think he'd be a great addition to the Lakers. And I agree. I think you wait because it always seems to happen like clockwork around the same time. Around the All-Star break, all of a sudden D'Lo starts heating up.
Yeah.
As soon as the iron strikes hot and you get a great offer for him, gone. Bye.
Right.
So I like him, and I'm excited to see how the season plays out, man. And when it comes to the Lakers and just any team in general, the mark of a good GM is how did you do with your moves on the margin? That's normally what makes or break a lot of teams.
Agreed.
And I'll give the Celtics credit again. They killed this every year. It's Peyton Pritchard stepped up big time against us. He's looked great this year. Even guys like Sam Hauser. Even though it's been rough, I'm still liking Gary Trent this year so far.
I think it's interesting that last night, or earlier in the day, obviously, if you watch the show, Kendrick Perkins and a few other people said, I think the Bucks are going to win, I think the Celtics are going to win 70 games, right? They're going to win 70 games. Everybody co-signed on it. They're going to win 70 games. And then they ended up losing to the Pacers. And by the way, at one point, the Pacers were up over 20. Give the Celtics credit for fighting back, but a loss is a loss. I'm going to take the under. I do think the Celtics are on a mission to repeat, but I don't think they're going to focus on winning 70 games. In the end, it's more important to win the championship than it is to win 70 games.
I think they win like 65 games. I think they'll win an abnormal amount of games. Like maybe they even hit like 67. But I don't think people realize how tough it is to truly win 70 games in the NBA. Like, not a lot can go wrong for you. Like, even the 73-9 Warriors still had, they had some surprising losses in there. They got pushed to the limit by a lot of teams that shouldn't have pushed them. And, you need a lot of bounces to go your way. So, I agree with you. I don't think they get there, but I do think that it's going to be – they'll still hit like 65, 67. I think both them and the Thunder win over 60 games this year.
So, here's the question, because there's been so many different formulas that impact what an MVP is. What's a formula where they say he's the best player on the team with the best record, right? That justifies him being MVP. I've heard that one many times. The reason why I'm saying this is if the Celtics win 67 games and Oklahoma City wins 62 games, Shea averages 28, let's say he goes 28, 8, and 6, and Tatum goes, 26, 7, and 7. Tatum wins MVP. Do you know what I'm saying? Because that was the formula. Best player on the team with the best record. Does Tatum get MVP?
Oh, I definitely I never liked the logic of just the best player on the best team wins MVP because it's not always true. So I think that you're going to have to do a lot to rip it away from Shea this year. I really think that it's his year. Shea's a guy that not only is he giving you buckets, he's also averaging like a block and a steal a game as well. He's getting it done on the defensive and offensive end. So
I'm not arguing, but
yeah,
everything you just said, doesn't that apply to Tatum? Tatum's actually been a very good defender for a long time. I look, this isn't me advocating for Jason Tatum. This is me pointing out something that a lot of people ignore. Shea's he is a front runner, just like he was last year for MVP. But if his team wins less games and the Celtics win more games, why wouldn't Tatum be MVP? you can't make the argument that the Celtics have more talent. I would actually argue top to bottom, OKC has more overall talent. It's not even close.
No, that's fair. And in that scenario, it's a very real chance. Honestly, I wouldn't hate Tatum winning MVP. I predicted it last year. So if my prediction comes a year too late, then oh well, I'll take it, I guess. But no, I wouldn't hate it. It almost feels like an MVP would help Tatum a ton because, people question if he's the best player on his own team, which is absolutely insane to me. But I really wouldn't hate it. It's tough, but
I think. Look, we made our picks about MVP, and I don't think either you or I thought Tatum's going to win MVP. I think we had the usual suspects. You and I had Shea, we had Luka, we had Joker. Giannis is always in the top 5. I don't think we had Tatum in the top 5. That's not me. That's not us disrespecting Tatum. I think that's just acknowledging the guys at the top. More times than not, most people would assume those guys we mentioned are better than him, right? He's a great player, but I think most people would say they're better than he is. All I'm saying is he kind of gets slept on. And I think it's weird because it's not that he's not a great player. It just so happens his sidekick, Jaylen Brown, is a terrific player as well. But that doesn't water down what Tatum does or what Tatum means to them. So I do think, should this happen, should both teams win over 60 games, I guess the argument some people are going to make is, well, look how good their starting 5 is. I understand that. But have you seen OKC starting 5? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Mo, we actually have some breaking news that just came through. This is actually unfortunate. Paulo Banchero is out indefinitely with a torn right oblique.
Oh.
He reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. For anybody that hasn't watched any Magic games, Banchero's been averaging 29, not like 9 and 6 this year. He's been absolutely insane. It's just a brutal loss for the Magic.
It is, because they run everything through him, and I watched every Magic game in this early season, and you could see the clear development in his overall game and how much better he was. He was abusing everybody that was smaller than him, and then just blowing and taking everybody bigger than him off the dribble. And I'm looking at that Magic team. It's a good team, but if they don't have Paolo Banchero for an indefinite amount of time, they're definitely going to fall in the standings because they don't have a lot of offensive firepower to begin with. And then you remove their best player. It's going to be a tough run for them until he gets back.
No, I absolutely agree. And like I said, hopefully it's closer to 4 weeks than 6. Just gut-wrenching. But, you just paid a lot of guys a lot of money. So it's time for Franz Wagner to step up and show everybody what number one option Franz looks like. Jalen Suggs just got paid. So it'll be interesting to see if any of these guys can step up and just replace what he was doing. And I know that's an impossible ask. But if, all these guys come up and they each step up a little bit and chip in, they're still going to win some basketball games. But
they will, because they're still one of the elite defenses in the NBA. And you're right. Wagner can step up. His brother can step up coming off the bench. You can add a little bit more from Suggs. So I do think they can – you can't replace him, but maybe by committee they can try to supplement and replace his production, at least until he gets back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm really curious to check out the scores of these games real quick. Let's take a look. Oh, yeah, this looks actually even worse than... So Spurs and Jazz have started. It's 48-38, Jazz over the Spurs. The Rockets are still up 13 on the Mavericks, 57-44. And the Grizzlies are up on Milwaukee, 101-70. We'll be taking no further questions about that at this time. Oh, my goodness.
I have to believe that your starters are no longer playing.
I hope like half the team just gets traded at this point. which is ironic because now I get to hear for the next week even more Giannis trade talks and rumors. Which
I don't believe it.
I don't either. And you know what's funny to me, Mo, is Giannis sits there, preaches winning and winning and winning. How he just wants to compete for more titles. Report comes out, yeah, he wants to get traded to the Brooklyn Nets. What? That doesn't even remotely make sense for, a player of Giannis's caliber. Like,
he wants to get traded from the Bucks to a lottery team. Sure, he does.
And it's like, what are you even doing with that? Like, and there was even another report that came out, like, he really likes Ben Simmons. I'm like, so you want Giannis, Ben Simmons, and Nick Claxton on offense and then try to run a functional offense? Like, what are we doing here?
Look,
Listen, you want to make some rumors about Giannis leaving? Go ahead. I've been listening to it since like 2018. It doesn't get old. But at least pick better teams. Miami is better, but they have Bam, and that's about it. Jimmy Butler's 36. That's why I said that's about it. I get it. He's still a great player, but for how much longer? And he's looked old to start the year.
You know what? I'm a big Jimmy Butler fan, but I think this current version of him, he needs to play alongside somebody that's better than him. I don't think this version of Jimmy Butler can carry you anywhere. This version of Jimmy Butler is a complimentary player.
Yeah, absolutely. So I question if, Miami Heat would. First of all, I don't think either team has the trade assets to do anything.
Right. What would you want?
Right.
Like if you're Milwaukee, even if you thought that, you would want Bam and 4 or 5 number 1 picks and Tyler Hero. That's what you're going like. They don't have a lot of what you want. Like if you're going to move Giannis, nobody moves people like Giannis and Joker. But let's just say hypothetically you would. You're going to want back something that's going to set your franchise up for success going forward. You're going to want a lopsided deal in return. And Miami or Brooklyn, neither one of them have the assets to get a guy like Giannis.
I will say, if we're doing the Giannis sweepstakes, hypothetically, we all know who's in the lead for that. The Oklahoma City Thunder would be Giannis's to lose if he's willing to go there. Because let's be real, they have everything going for them to get a guy like Giannis. They have the picks.
How would that work?
And they have a young star in need of a new contract in the next couple of years. I'm talking J-Dub, Jalen Williams.
Oh.
So I think what ends up happening is you do a sign and trade with Jalen Williams. You add in whatever other pieces you need to match salaries, and you end up shipping off a lot of picks. And that's probably the blueprint of the Giannis trade. I obviously think that there's going to be more to it than that possibly. But I think if I'm going to trade Giannis, it would be to Oklahoma City. And I think the most realistic return I can expect if I was a Bucks fan is I think Jalen Williams will be available.
And a bunch of number 1 picks.
I don't think that Chet Holmgren's available.
No.
I really don't think Chet's available.
They're not trading Chet, even though – here's the thing, though, because we're doing a hypothetical. I don't know how that would work. Like, because of what Giannis's strengths are and what he does, you put Giannis with Chet. I think your defense would be amazing at the rim. But offensively, wouldn't you have a spacing issue? Like, I don't know how that would work at all. It's interesting because no doubt that's Shea's team. I don't care if Giannis is coming there or not. That would still be Shea's team. I don't know how Giannis would fit in Oklahoma City.
It depends on that. I think the fit really does depend on how much you believe in Chet being like a high volume 3-point shooter, which I think he could pull off. I think that would be fine. It would be interesting because for some reason, every single team that Giannis is on, they're shooting like the Bucks' entire tenure forget how to shoot when the postseason comes around. And that might just, at this point, like, it just might be just playing with Giannis. You're just standing around a lot. There's not a lot of movement. It's really tough to just be a spot-up shooter all game and just waiting for maybe a handful of attempts. It's tough on shooters.
I agree with that, and I do agree with the notion that could Chet be a high-level three-point shooter? Yes. More importantly, Chet's not just he's a 7-footer, but he can put the ball on the floor. Like Chet can blow by people and attack the basket. Like he's a complete player. I wanted to talk about this. You and I were talking about some of our, who's MVP, who's DPOY, who's most improved. I still think this is early in the year, but when it's all said and done, Wemby's going to be in contention for DPOY. But what I've noticed when I've watched Wemby versus when I've watched Chet, I will say this: Chet Holmgren's defensive instincts are better than Wemby's. I'm talking about his recognition of coverages, the switching, the show, the recover. They're better than Wemby's. Everything Wemby is doing is on raw talent. I think Chet Holmgren is going to be in play for DPOY as well.
I think that's a very realistic scenario. Chet's been absolutely phenomenal defensively. We watched him, shut down the Nuggets, shut down the Nuggets, just allowing nothing to come to the rim, and he's just been getting better and better, putting on a masterclass against Wemby yesterday. Although,
no, go ahead.
I will say, just real quick, talking about the Spurs and Wemby, they really need to find spacing at the four. Like, they can't be running these Jeremy Shohan lineups out there because it's just killing Wemby. And the spacing too much because guess what? Chris Paul's not really shooting a lot of threes and never really has been this volume three-point shooter. Shohan, really can't shoot. So teams are just putting their best shot blockers on Shohan and a wing on Wemby, and it's really just almost forcing Wemby just to shoot from distance, which he can do, but if you want the best version of Wemby, you got to get him inside, and I think that starts with finding a proper stretch for him.
Yeah, my problem with Shohan is, look, Pop's a great coach, and I know he's one of those coaches that rewards hard work. I'm not starting Shohan. I think Shohan is a valuable rotation piece, but if I know what Wemby can do in his skill set, like you said, Shohan, because he can't shoot, he creates spacing issues for Wemby. You have to put a guy on the floor with Wemby that can allow him to have more space to work off of. Shohan is not that guy. Look, we know that their second leading scorer, Devin Vassell, is out. And when he gets back, that will help relieve some of that pressure. But if Shohan is still in the starting lineup, it won't solve any of your problems. You cannot have that many non-shooters in your starting lineup because teams are just loading up on Wemby.
Yeah, hopefully Vassell's back soon. That would be great. Overall, although shout out Harrison Barnes, he's cashing 50% of his threes on 3 attempts a game. That is great. And who knows? Maybe mess around and try Harrison Barnes at the 4 minutes. It's really a year to kind of experiment for the Spurs anyway. I don't think anybody's realistically expecting you to really make the playoffs. That's why they're kind of always seem to be under the hot take the Spurs make the playoffs. But we know they're still developing, so why not mess around? Why not try someone like Barnes at the 4 and just try to create better spacing for Wemby in general?
I think you can get away with it in certain matchups. Harrison Barnes I know he's a 3, but look at his body and his build. He could probably guard some of the smaller 4s. Like, he's a big guy. And in terms of spacing offensively, it still is an upgrade from what you're doing right now. I just think that when you look at Wemby, you see that how he's developing. We do this with young stars. They come on, they wow us, and then the league adjusts to them and realize, like, well, you know what you can do with Wemby? You can be more physical with him. You can push him out more. And because he doesn't have a lot of shooting around him, you're not afraid to triple and double team him. That's something that Pop, the GM and company, they've got to get together and think about. We've got to maybe go out there and put together a couple of moves that's going to alleviate some pressure from Wemby.
Yeah, no, because you want to try to make some moves and make this all happen while Wemby's still on his rookie contract, and
Facts.
that second contract comes up quick. We're talking about what I think it's after year 3 you can start negotiating a new contract for Wemby. So he's getting the max, probably a super max by then. I'm assuming between now and his next contract he makes an All NBA team. Be aggressive. Go get the pieces now.
Yeah.
I like their young pieces. I think Castle's going to be a lot of fun. Vassell, I think you have enough young pieces. Go try to get that second star. Go for it. Swing for the fences now while Wemby's still cheap, but be careful. Don't blow all your assets to trade for the wrong star.
This is true.
There's a cautionary tale to be had.
Yeah, now I'm with you. You have to get guys that complement not just only what your system dictates, but a guy that complements your star skill sets as well. So I'm with you 100% on that. And look, like you said, it's still a young team overall, notwithstanding Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes. And we don't want to get caught up in an overreaction. It's early in the year. Do I think these Spurs could turn it around and still win 30 to 35 games and have an outside shot at making the play-in? Sure, I do. I do, because the NBA is a battle of attrition. It's not a sprint. And we just talked about the Magic losing Paolo Banchero for 6 weeks. It's just it's a nature of the beast. There's going to be other teams that are going to lose some players at different times, especially when you're star older guys. It's going to happen. So I think San Antonio was going to weather this early season storm. They're off to a slow start, but I think they'll turn it around when it's all said and done. I'm not guaranteeing a playoff spot, but I think they'll have a respectable win-loss record when it's all said and done.
One team I wanted to for sure touch on, because I find this to be very interesting, the New York Knicks. And the thing that I find interesting, Mo, is Karl-Anthony Towns and his three-point attempts. Now, I understand what Tibbs is trying to do, get him to play closer to the basket. I did not expect him to have the 7th most three-point attempts on the Knicks. There are 6 other guys on that team taking more shots than Karl-Anthony Towns. Which, great, you're getting him to play closer to the basket, but he's still such a great shooter that I think he should be launching a couple more threes up a game. Which he's only taken 11 and he's at 8. So he's been elite. He's at 72% from 3 on the year. But let me read you some names on who I think he should be taking more threes than. Number 1 on their list, Mikal Bridges, should be shooting more threes than him. OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Miles McBride, and this is the confusing one. Cam Payne has shot more threes than him.
Wow.
Now, I love that they're getting him closer to the basket, but I also think that they need to maybe use him as a floor spacer a little more. Just, it kind of pains me to see some guys like Cam Payne and even Josh Hart shouldn't be shooting more threes than Karl-Anthony Towns, just based off their level and ability to shoot the basketball.
Look, I'm with you. Jalen Brunson is their I guess their primary. He's the number 1 option per se. Even Jalen Brunson isn't a better shooter than Karl-Anthony Towns. If you're going to bring Towns in, then you have to take advantage of all his strengths. Another one of his strengths is his shooting. He literally is the best shooter on the Knicks. So when you tell me there are 6 guys that take more threes, that's strange to me because he's their best shooter. He shoots the 3 better than any of them. And I'm sorry. Yes, having him close to the basket, there's value in that. He can be productive. He is a lot more effective in the post than people think he is. But I think that's one aspect of his game. You've got to take advantage, to me, of all his aspects and all the talent and skill that he brings to you. He not only can stretch the floor, but he can shoot the ball at such a high level well and so efficiently from the outside. Why not take advantage of that? I actually think, like you said, if you're using him to space the floor and the other team's bigs have to respect that, doesn't that not open up the floor for other people?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And You know, it's funny. And like Mikal Bridges has already launched up 25, but he has that really high release now where I don't think he should be shooting as many threes. Definitely not more than Cap, but it's funny because guys with that really high 3-point release normally aren't great 3-point shooters. Like, we've seen it happen before, but there's just so many guys that when they try to release at the top of their, jump, kind of like Mikal Bridges is doing,
Right.
it's like a line drive. And there's really not a lot of great arc under it. So I think his mid-range will stabilize, but I think Mikal Bridges should tone down on the 3-point shooting a little bit. And I would almost love to see them switch. I'd love to see Mikal just attacking inside more,
Right.
outside more. I think if you swap those two roles, the offense gets even better. Although Cat absolutely manhandled the Heat, which I also think the Heat need a real center in there. No offense to Bam Adebayo, I just think that Bam's too small for a lot of real centers.
You know what? Bam's off to a really slow start too. I thought coming off of what he did in the Olympics, he would actually start this season off on a roll, and he's actually gone the other way around. And I agree, not against every big, but there are certain bigs that he's just overmatched. And look, to your point about the shooting, the best shooters usually they're shooting their jump shots going on the way up. When you shoot jump shots, primarily you're using your legs. But if you when you wait till you get to the top of your shot, it usually isn't that effective or that efficient. So I don't understand what Bridges is doing. I will say this. I think Bridges, like you said, should be working more on the elbow or in that 16, 12 foot range and do a lot less shooting from three. I'm not saying that the Knicks system is a bad system, but I am saying that you didn't bring Towns there to just be in the post. At least I hope you didn't. Not when you know his shooting threat will open up better and easier opportunities from everybody else. I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely think one of the Knicks' problems going in, as the year progresses is it feels like they had an issue with nobody really stepping up as the secondary passer and playmaker to help out Brunson. And it feels like that just got, even worse this past year by losing Randall, ironically, because he was, for all of his flaws, he was still a really good passer. And I don't think they have that secondary passer on that team. So I'm going to be curious to see if they can, how they really work around it.
No, that's a good point. Bringing in Towns, who could be a solid passer out of the post, but he's not a shot creator per se. And when you look at the Knicks and you look at their roster top to bottom, the only guy that's really a shot creator off the dribble is Brunson. Josh Hart's not a shot creator. Mikal Bridges not a shot creator. Neither is McBride. Like, you want to tell me a hole the Knicks that the Knicks need to address? They need another playmaker. They need another guy who can create off the bounce. Because if not, they're going to struggle because you're putting everything on Brunson. And I think that's not sustainable.
Absolutely. And kind of further the point home, actually, Julius Randle leads the Timberwolves in assists with 20. And ironically, I think part of their, they started out the year, the Minnesota Timberwolves, 2-2, but they got to be really pleasantly surprised with Randall's play so far because I don't think anybody expected him to start out as hot as he has from three. He's 10 of 16 from deep so far this year. So, credit to Julius Randle. He came into a situation and he's so far looked like he's adapted. I'm not going to say that, it's going to be all this pleasant throughout the entire year. There's going to be ups and downs, but he's at least shown that he's willing to be more of a playmaker and, adapt more to playing around Dan.
Yeah, I agree. He's played well so far. My only thing about Julius Randle is he's played well in the regular season a lot of times. I've yet to see him play well in the postseason, and I'm going to judge him off of that. And if you're a Timberwolves fan, all I can tell you is up until this point in his career, he's been built for the regular season.
Oh, the Timberwolves are going to fans are going to hate the playoffs because they're going to have two of the easiest people to hate come playoff time are Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert, and they have both of them. So it's going to be kind of funny to watch how Timberwolves fans just sit there dealing with the double hatred on them.
I totally forgot about. Yeah, you're right. Rudy's there. They're immediately both going to be the scapegoats should things go sideways.
Yeah, I was actually watching old Rudy Jazz, because I saw an interesting comment where somebody said that, Donovan Mitchell was better defensively than given credit for in Utah. And I'm like, D. Mitchell's terrible defensively. I'll go back to make sure I didn't miss anything. Nah, that entire Jazz rotation was just bad defensively. And it was hard to watch. Like, it was just straight up me watching I was watching, for context, it was Dallas versus Utah, the series where Jalen Brunson ironically went haywire. Oh, right. It is just such a hard watch because half the time we're just watching missed rotations, lazy rotations, easily letting guys into the lane. Like, there was nothing pretty about watching it. It was tough.
You know what? It's interesting that people say that that Donovan Mitchell was a better defender. No, he wasn't. He was an incredible scorer, but the backbone of that defense, if you want to call, because he didn't have a lot of great perimeter defenders in front of him, was Gobert. It was him. Look, I know he's an easy target, low hanging fruit, but did he earn those 4 DPOYs? Absolutely, he earned them. And if you're a numbers guy and you believe in advanced numbers and analytics, the advanced numbers tell you he was DPOY, period. I get it if you want to go, well, what about the playoffs, Mo? And I go, well, if you look at the playoffs, his numbers in the playoffs actually hold up as well, too. There are moments, I get it, when you catch him out there on a moment and Luka staggers him and shoots a dead-eye 3. That's not about him. I've seen Luka do that to pretty much everybody in the league. You're talking about maybe arguably the best one-on-one player in the NBA. He does that to everybody. So I'm not trying to be like, oh, you're an advocate for Rudy Gobert. I'm just pointing out it isn't that he's not a great defender, but that saying has to hold up. Great offense trumps great defense. It always has.
And it's ironic because those same people be like, well, Anthony Davis, on the other hand, and it's like, he should have won those DPOIs. And I hate that argument because, like, first off, he wasn't even the runner-up for any of those DPOIs, so he's not winning any of those DPOIs if Rudy wins it. But it's funny because, and I think Anthony Davis is an elite defender also. I think he's elite of the elite. He's just very good at everything. But half the time they're like, oh, well, look what Luka did to him. Couldn't I do the same thing with you if you use Anthony Davis, for example? Like, oh, look what Jamal Murray did to him.
Right.
Winner on his head. Look what Jokic did to him. Sombor shuffle on his head. Like, I think too many people are just so fixated on the result that they overlook the process. Like, the reality is Gobert holds up fine, and he does very good for somebody his size on a lot of these switches. Guess what? Not everybody's built like Wemby. He's not as thin as Wemby. This is Gobert moving at 7'1", 260 pounds of, like, muscle.
Right.
It's completely different body type than Wemby, the guy you're trying to hold them as a standard to. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, every elite defender you can think of has just had somebody drop a moment on their head. And I think it's kind of unfair to sit there and blast Gobert because one of the greatest offensive engines that we've ever seen in the history of the game, and Luka Doncic, hit a game winner.
And he's a proven defensive player. He's an asset. I just think the criticism can be a little bit over the top for him. You pointed out AD is a terrific defensive player, but he wasn't even number 2 in any of those DPOYs that Gobert won. I do think that because we're in an age where we're shooting at such a premium, rim protection is at an even bigger premium. So that's why Rudy Gobert is as valuable as he is.
Yeah, at the end of the day, no matter what year you play in basketball, rim protection will always end up being the most valuable asset because you can talk about people shooting 30-40% from three, but you give up an easy look at the rim. What is that, like an almost 100% chance it goes in unless your name's like Brandon Knight?
Right.
Like if you're giving up wide open layups, that's like an 100% chance. You can't be doing that. So rim protection will just always be at a premium. But yeah.
You know what? We can kind of get on our rant from time to time. I wanted to mention something to you, and I think you saw it the same day I saw it. Because every now and then you see something crazy. You see something crazy because NBA fans, the one thing we all are is we're passionate, but I think sometimes we're definitely not living on the same planet. Somebody put out a post that said Carmelo Anthony is better than Larry Bird. And he said it's not even close. He said it with that kind of conviction. It's not even close. You're right. It's not even close. Larry Bird is that much better than Carmelo Anthony. You can make some obvious points. Melo is quicker. He's more athletic. He's physically bigger than Larry Bird. Those things are all true. Here's the thing, though. Larry Bird actually he was a much better defender without all the athleticism. He made all NBA defense multiple times. Nobody was ever going to accuse Carmelo Anthony of locking down anybody at any time in his career. Larry Bird was a much better rebounder, a much better passer, a much better shooter. I could keep going. Now, if we took it off the court and we took it to a blacktop and they played a game of one-on-one, would I favor Carmelo Anthony against Larry Bird in a game of one-on-one? Probably. He might even win. But that wouldn't change who's the better player. That would just tell you who's the better one-on-one player. Put them on the court with 8 other guys. Larry Bird's the better basketball player, period.
I think too many people get so caught up in what Carmelo was good at, which was isolation scoring. And that seems to be a favorite among fans. And rightfully so. Isolation scoring is a lot of fun when you can just beat somebody one-on-one. And, Carmelo was one of the best at doing that. That man could score in a phone booth. But like you said, the issue is basketball is a 5-on-5 sport. Yeah, sure. Carmelo's the better isolation scorer. If you want to say that Carmelo Anthony was the better just pure scorer than Larry Bird, I'm not going to argue that. But you know what? The issue is, as big of a gap as you think there is in scoring, that gap just is 20 times bigger between if you compare Larry Bird and Carmelo Anthony in playmaking. Larry Bird was just an absolutely phenomenal passer. Carmelo Anthony, I got excited when he hit 4 assists because I thought he was turning a corner. He was not a passer at all. I got to watch that in New York. Defense, yeah, Larry Bird was a much better defender. So, and at the end of the day, that's just such a bad take. Carmelo over Larry. It's Larry Bird, and it's not close.
And that's the frustrating part. It's not that you or I are anti-Carmelo Anthony. We're not. I can acknowledge his talents and his strengths. And let's throw in another thing that does impact games and impact winning. Your basketball IQ. Larry Bird had an insanely high basketball IQ and was a leader. Melo's a lot of things, as gifted as he was at his peak, whether you loved him in Denver or when he went to the Knicks, he was never a leader. That's just not part of what he was as a basketball player. So, like I said, if you separate the blacktop from an NBA court, they're two different things. These are weird arguments for people to go like, well, Melo would just kill him. You're literally like watering down basketball to a game of one-on-one. And if you measured it out as a game of one-on-one, there are a lot of guys who would win a one-on-one tournament. Those same guys, they're not winning any NBA titles.
My favorite example of that, Michael Beasley, baby, apparently smoking LeBron one-on-one in practice when he was in Miami. And honestly, I wouldn't doubt it. Michael Beasley was a very good one-on-one player. It really didn't translate to 5-on-5, though.
It did not. Bees is a great one-on-one player. But at the same token, Michael Beasley's not in the NBA right now. He's playing in the Big Three, and that's That's no shade on the big three because I enjoy the style of play. I enjoy seeing familiar names out there competing. But if Michael Beasley was a good and a complete basketball player, and he has the talent to be that, he'd be in the league right now. Another part of basketball, or any sport for that matter, is your approach to your profession and your mentality. Michael Beasley could be erratic at times. It's one of the reasons why he's not in the league.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's always my favorite example of great one-on-one players, but it's just, I think that's the problem with the way a lot of people view the game too. It's like the same on defense, right? Like people are so quick to say, "Oh, X is a trash defender," all because they might not be a good one-on-one defender. But if you're good in a team sense, you can still be a good defender. So I think sometimes basketball does get watered down too much into, oh, who's good at 1v1? I don't care. It's 5v5. It's great to have that ISO score on your team for, playoff time when buckets become tough, but that's not the end-all be-all if you don't have that guy.
No, I'm with you. I agree. I think too many times that's what they do. They water everything down to a one-on-one matchup, and it doesn't always play out like that. So, look, shout out to Melo. Great career. He's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. There's no question there. And in a bigger picture, if we did a top 100 players, is Melo going to be above a lot of guys? He absolutely will. Just one of the guys he's nowhere near being above happens to be named Larry Bird. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's all I had for us today, Mo. Anything you want to add before we get up on out of here?
No, just thank everybody for coming out. Appreciate you guys for sticking with us, listening to the show, supporting the show. And happy Halloween. Be safe out there when you're out there collecting candy. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you check out all the great content we have at Wire to Wire Network. Check out the N1 podcast page. Check out N1. Every time we come out on Thursdays, Brett and I are always going to chop up. And make sure you check out all new episodes of the Meaty Boy podcast, Tuesday nights, 8 Central. We appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and I appreciate everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm glad hopefully everybody tuned in. Thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoyed Peanut's commentary as well. I'd like to apologize again for my outburst earlier, but thank you guys very much. I appreciate you, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page, and join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.